Welcome to the Tech Insider, where we talk to the people who can give you the insights and trends that matter to you in your business. I'm Christine Grail with Leica Geosystems.
I am so excited to have with us today a whole team of professionals from Challenger Geomatics. They are a surveying and geomatics firm based near Calgary in Alberta, Canada. And I'm going to let Mike Fretwell go ahead and just tell us a little bit about the company, Mike.
Challenger's been around for 40 years. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. It's wholly employee owned. I think we got approximately 60 shareholders right now. We have offices in Canada in Calgary, Edmonton, Whitehorse, and Yellowknife, and we're looking to expand. We predominantly operate in the Canadian region right now, but we've also worked in numerous locations internationally over the last 40 years. Challenger from the very start has been sort of a maker organization. The leading staff, and most of the staff actually are either highly trained technologists or professional engineers or applied scientists, many with multiple degrees and professional credentials in multiple jurisdictions. That affords us the opportunity to bring different solutions to bear for clients' problems. So case in point, in early days, we integrated systems together to put what we called an oh shit system in tourist bus in East Savo National Park in Africa. We put together shovel guidance systems for mining operations and design and develop that, ultimately transferring the IP to another firm. All kinds of innovative solutions specific to tasks over the years. So that's sort of the core DNA of Challenger, and we're in a healthy position looking to grow in our market.
Mike, I know that you are the VP of Innovation. I believe that's a relatively new division within Challenger. I know we have Matt McAdam, who is a project manager. We have Paul Abday, another project manager, on with us, as well as Mandy Rammer, who is a senior survey technologist. So I'm so happy to have you guys with us on the program today. And it sounds like you've done some really amazing work. I wonder if there's a project that you've worked on recently that is just really stands out to you.
Well, I'm going to turn that over to Paul. Paul is kind of the guy who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting on some of our development initiatives right now, but he can speak to some of the examples that we've been working on. Okay.
Yeah, one specific example we have is a utility client who they came to us. All their survey work is for the survey work. There's very specific outputs. They're the same every time. And this project is repetitive. You're doing the same profiles day in, day out. So it's the same survey, same scope of work, and always the same outputs. So using the XML within Captivate, exported from Captivate, we run that through a program, and it calculates a whole bunch of different things and converts the Leica Captivate XML into a specific format unique to that client. And that was one of the things that we started really using the XML out of Captivate for, and we've done that for some other projects, pile stakeouts, all kinds of as-built reports where you can turn around the product to the client much faster by doing it through a program rather than having somebody calculate that manually themselves. And when you're doing the same calculation over and over again, that leads itself to automating the task rather than having somebody manually calculate every single time.
One of the things I love about what Challenger is doing is that your team is taking technology and you're just pushing the envelope and trying to see how much you can get out of that technology, or using things like style sheets in the Captivate field software. You're continually innovating your processes and not just the technology itself, but how you use the technology. It really speaks well to the talent that you have within your firm. But I know, Mike, you and I have had some discussions about the value proposition in surveying, and that there is a challenge right now about how the surveying profession, how surveying skill sets are viewed within the broader community. Can you address that for a moment?
I think a primary concern is that a lot of the projects we're involved in, they're a competitive bid and they're based on rates. So really, when you're compensated by the amount of time you spend to do something, rather than how quickly you do it or the value of it, then it becomes difficult to innovate because it's not really incentivized to be faster. It is incentivized to be better, but what we strive to do now is change the value perception of our clients. So it's value-based compensation for the work we do, and that way we can afford to innovate across the board. And then what we do is we find it's sort of like a self-proclamating solution in which on one project where the value of the effort we put in is rewarded, we innovate on that and then use that to enhance our services in other areas, which makes us more competitive. It is a challenging space when we go through procurement. Some of the services are commoditized, and it looks like they're getting a better deal because it's lower rates per hour. So we definitely need to work harder from a sales perspective, from a business development perspective, to carry that value proposition message. And it's a work in progress, I must admit. It's a bit of a learning curve for everybody because it's not how we ordinarily would get compensated. So we changed that.
Even having a separate division called innovation, I don't know if it's a separate division, but here you've created this emphasis on innovation. You've taken on the role of VP of innovation. You've really owned that. I was talking to a surveyor recently who said, wow, I wish we had an innovation segment because that's what we need here. So I think you've taken an important first step. And one of the things you're doing is trying to add automation wherever possible. Where have you found that to be of value? Give me some examples of some of the places that you've added automation to your process.
For myself and projects that I work on, I guess I work on quite a diverse breadth of different projects, ranging from mining operators to upstream oil and gas projects, and there's a lot of opportunities to automate the processes in those things. They have assets that need monitoring, and these are repeat surveys where we come back once a year or twice a year, so they're campaign-based monitoring surveys. So we've gone through and really nailed down our field process in such a way that we can get the data from our field crews into the office in the format that we need it, and developed our series of scripts. And in the past, it would take us probably like a week of analysis. We got to get the data. We've got to manually put it into a format, ingest it into another piece of software, analyze that, get it into another piece of software. Where now we can take formats from XML, GSI formats straight from Leica, and then we can script all that stuff into our analysis software that we need, and then do the reporting that we need to do and get stuff to our client in a really timely fashion, and still maintain that high level of quality in that reporting, and our client gets the information that they need and they can make decisions. This works really well with monitoring projects, even with our regulatory projects that we do in Alberta as well. For regulatory applications, there's all sorts of opportunities to take collected data in the field and put that into tables and charts and get that information to the client so they can do their applications and all of the negotiations on their end in a timely fashion too, and really reduce the amount of errors that would have occurred in doing that process manually.
Now, for surveyors, that's a tricky proposition, right? Because to what extent do you trust the automation versus your own skills? Because you've worked really hard at honing those skills and you are confident in your skills, but at some point, automation does it better. And so that must be a hard line to walk sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And I think there is an embedded culture of believing that we absolutely have to look at it that way. Like we have to reprocess everything, have to look at it in fine detail in order to ensure that we can underwrite it, that we can stand behind it. What we've determined, though, is that with proper controls, good processes, using the tools the way they're intended, keeping everything in good adjustment, and making sure that we have error checks and balances, that we can automate the process. And one thing that's been very successful is virtually, well, I would say 100% compliant now. Our field crews submit a series of returns out of Captivate in a format that we have dictated. That is automatically processed. It's quality controlled. Feedback goes to the crews every night, or as soon as it's submitted. Now it's on demand now, indicating whether it's compliant with our standards or not, and what are the issues may be. Like, for example, code lists. If someone uses a code which isn't officially sanctioned, it gets red flagged. And it says, oh, why are you using this code? Is there some reason? Do we need to add it? Or is it something that, you picked up by yourself? And as far as processing the returns is concerned, we're doing a quality audit on the quality of the performance of the survey, the quality of the returns. We're looking at things like PDOPs automatically, and then we get a succinct report on what's good and what's not. And maybe Mandy can speak to how that actually affects the role of the technologist who is responsible for processing the information on behalf of the land surveyor.
Yeah, ever since the automation was introduced, it's really noticeable how much time it saves. We're not doing a lot of repetitive tasks manually anymore. Things are automated. There's a quality report that I look at instead of processing the data manually. And the quality report shows me everything I need to see, everything I need to check. And I'm able to focus on other tasks because I save so much time doing the automation. So that has made a big difference.
Well, I would think in terms of allowing the projects, allowing the teams to turn around projects as quickly as possible, that has a huge impact, because now you're able to deliver data to your clients much faster. You're able to deliver data from the field into the office much faster. And so it just has an impact on everything that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Christy. And I think that one of the things we're able to do in certain situations is it's more or less edge computing, right? That we're in the moment, we can give the results to the client in the field in a format that they're willing to accept, right? Or that they want to see, that is expected. And then we can provide professional sign off within a set period of time, dependent upon the dictates of the contract. For example, if we're doing shallow or deep service installations in the city for sanitary sewers or for water lines and stuff like that, those grade sheets need to be signed off by the engineer. If the engineer is in the field, the city engineer, if the engineer inspector is in the field at that time, that format can be given to him directly from the controller. And that's groundbreaking. That's revolutionary for us from a delivery perspective, because it shortens the time period now. You're not reliant upon resources that are busy doing other things. Yes, absolutely, you need to error check it, make sure there's no blunders, but the quality report gives us all that.
That's impressive. I know Matt is going to have to step away here in just a minute because he has a client meeting that he has to attend. I don't know, Matt, did you have anything to add to just the whole idea of how your process automation is influencing the projects that you're delivering to your clients?
Well, in one project that we work on every year, it's a monitoring project, and the automations that we've implemented on this project. At the end of the day, with the submission of the data and the processing, I know exactly if there's an issue with a monument, if there's something weird going on, if potentially there was an issue with a survey procedure that didn't go quite right. I know within 5 minutes of receiving that data, I can look at the report, see what it looks like. Everything's been adjusted, and to analyze that network at that time, and I can update the client on our progress. And if something odd comes up, we can have a discussion like, oh, this area is looking a little odd. Maybe we should spend a little more time here and a little less time over there, and we can kind of real time adjust our survey to suit the need. And maybe the client is like, oh, we were doing work over there. Yeah, maybe we need to spend a little time over there, and we can have that interaction and that discussions between us and our clients to help them fine tune that survey almost real time.
I think you gave a perfect summary of the value of a survey and how you're changing that value proposition for surveying and geomatics when something odd comes up in a project. I mean, what projects have you worked on that haven't had something odd come up, right? It's just when those things happen, you want to have a surveyor involved from the very beginning. And I think that is key right there to what you've been saying.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I do got to run. I apologize.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Matt.
Yes, I wish I could stay a little longer, but I do got to run off to a client meeting. This was a last minute thing that was scheduled yesterday. So, but we do need to continue to solve problems.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Matt.
Take care of those situations for sure. Now, Mike, one of the things that I really appreciated in how Challenger Geomatics is approaching innovation is you have a very specific framework for it where you're really spelling out the benefit to your clients. That framework is something like the ask MVP, time to MVP, and value. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so what we're trying to present is innovation as part of our value proposition. You know, it's not something we do necessarily just inherently as a part of a project, although that's part of it, but it's also going to market with saying, you have a unique problem, we can help you solve that. Of course, there are limits on that. There's our domain expertise. But the concept is that actually getting a very clear, succinct problem statement from the client. And that involves discovery and communication, sometimes a lot of paraphrasing, rephrasing, clarification, making sure we fully understand what the client is actually trying to accomplish. And then from that, we can get to a minimal viable product very, very quickly. We have access to a lot of technology and a lot of expertise within the company that helps us solve those problems. And then coming up with a viable solution, presenting that to the client in a way that they can accept, consume, adjust, and iterate through improvement as we deploy. Recent instance, we had an ask on a Tuesday for something that a client said their incumbent surveyor said was impossible. We had a solution by Friday. It wasn't that we have any extraordinary knowledge. It's just the approach. It's just, well, it wasn't too much of a hassle for us to try to determine what a solution that would work for the client would be. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I know a big part of this too is you mentioned this at the beginning, that focus on speed and quality. And what is involved in that when you're focusing on both speed and quality? Because I think in the past, for surveyors especially, that quality was paramount. It still is paramount. You have to get it right. There's no margin for error in a lot of your projects. And so how do you add that speed element to it and still remain confident?
I think that goes back to what we talked about before, Christy, is making sure that we have good standard operating procedures, that we adhere to them, that, you know, our staff are well trained. They're encouraged to continue to maintain their training. Our equipment is, if not the best, that's a color conversation more than anything else. We've got some of the best technology in the field, and we're using it the way it's intended. And I think that's part of the quality process, is ensuring we understand how the equipment is to be used and the software that's downstream of that equipment, and then using it that way and not behaving in an unpredictable fashion, but also having the error checks in play immediately so that we can flag it and say, as Mandy alluded to, like, we know right away whether we've got a problem or not. Now, there are opportunities for failure in everything we do. It's a part of the process of surveying, is understanding where those limits are. But that's a part of the setup and the pre-analysis of the solution, and then following up to make sure that it is what you said it would be.
I'd like to drill down into the standard operating procedures comment that you made for a minute, because I think for a lot of surveying firms, developing and implementing standard operating procedures is really, really hard. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I think you end up with people who are really confident in their own procedures and how they've been trained, how it's been passed down to them. Change is difficult. And so when you have someone coming in and trying to change things from the top and saying we need to have these standard operating procedures, it can be really tricky to navigate that with your people. But how has Challenger developed and then made sure that people are following those standard operating procedures? And I'm sure there's a very in-depth explanation to that. Let's go with the short version.
All right. I was going to ask you just how much time you have for response to that. I will comment that it's a constant communication. You have to have endorsement at the highest levels. Everyone is involved in operations has a stake in the game, from the highest to the lowest. You need to ensure that we respect, but also be willing to respect the differences, but also be really willing to challenge them and ask why. Always ask why and seek a better solution. Challenger expends a great deal of effort in building and maintaining SOPs. Adherence is something that is on everybody to ensure that we're doing. Mandy and other senior technologists at Challenger, and Paul too, as one of our project managers, takes a very active role in producing, maintaining, improving standard operating procedures is an ongoing effort. Mandy, did you want to speak to that at all?
Sure.
All right, great.
Yeah, getting everyone on board is one of the hardest things, but what we do is we have meetings and we present what the change is going to be and why we're making this changes. We want to make sure that everyone knows the reason behind those changes and what the outcome is going to be. And we found that being open about this, putting it out there, being open for questions at all times really helps people understand and eventually adopt the system. And we're doing very well with this right now. It's working very well, and people can see that it makes a difference. Did you want to?
Well, I think that proof point, when people can see it working, that becomes paramount to getting the buy-in, right? And another discussion you and I have had, Mike, is about change management and implementing change. Sometimes the best time to implement change is when things aren't going so well and people are frustrated already. And so you're able to get them to try some different things. And then when they see that it works, it becomes the snowball effect that they're willing to try more new things. And so it almost becomes innovation as part of the culture then at that point.
Yeah. And to that point, for part of our automation of our field returns, we had to implement an SOP beforehand. We needed the returns in a consistent format to process them automatically. So we had to implement the SOP for submission return structure from our field crews. And we had that implemented 6 months before we actually started the auto processing of returns. And in that first 6 months, people asked, why do I have to submit it this way? Well, we're building something. And in that 6 months, people submitting returns in that requested format was about 50% compliance. And then once we had the automation running and people could see the point of it, and we showed them, they were getting these email alerts. This is your data processed overnight. Here's some things to look at. Our compliance is well into the high 90s for compliant returns. So seeing the point of it, not change for the sake of change, but change because we need to change our process to be competitive.
Do you have a single person who is reviewing processes and procedures on a regular basis, or is that owned by all of the project managers and others within the company?
It's a kind of team effort. Our field resource managers kind of supervise we do kind of an annual review of our field operations procedures for different tasks. Sorry?
I was going to mention Christian, but you can continue now.
Yeah, so we have a yearly review of our field operations procedures as well as our safety. And then the field resource managers will assign project managers and field crews that are more familiar with that specific procedure to kind of your annual review, process improvement, make sure that is going on, and then our quality management system and safety systems go under the same sort of thing.
Yeah,
It's
if I
great.
might
Almost
add, a couple
you
of
have
things.
SOPs for your SOPs, so that's fantastic. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, sorry, Christy, I didn't mean to speak over you. We are ISO 9001 certified, and part of that is making sure we have quality management in play, and the SOPs and everything else are part of that quality management system. We have an individual's responsible for manage that on our behalf, and part of that process is process improvement requests and corrective action requests that go through the executive for immediate action on certain aspects of our operations. But as Paul correctly pointed out, it's a team effort. We have a couple of professional land surveyors who actively watch the regulatory environment, and when legislation or our codes of practice change, they'll adopt or make recommendations that we change our SOPs to adapt to that.
That sounds really smart. Have you ever lost anyone in the process of implementing changes?
In lost them.
Lost them in terms
Obviously,
of they couldn't hang with whatever change was being implemented by the team.
I've got to admit it's challenging for everybody, and yes, we have lost some people. Potentially the way that I first went about trying to bring things forward was inelegant and didn't respect certain things amongst people. And that's part of the learning of change management, and saying, okay, well, the old analogy, the train is leaving the station if you're either on the train or on the platform, isn't appropriate, right? It's more, okay, how do we get you to believe? So we've taken a much more subtle approach to some of these changes, is sort of side of the desk, make these implement these changes and demonstrate through action. And we've been quite fortunate to have a few projects which really helped us to lift the bar a lot because of the way we were compensated based on the value. So we could demonstrate that if we did it this way, we're going to be that much better.
Well, it sounds like you're getting a lot more buy-in at this point. Again, now that you have a track record of success, you've added new technology to the firm, you've added automation over time, and it sounds like now the team is really confident in the direction that Challenger is headed.
Yeah, I believe that would be the case, and I think what you've seen is endorsement at the highest level of the organization, which carries a lot of weight. And now the heavy work starts. As we essentially build our innovation strategy and department, and hopefully be a game changer and get out from under the fee for service LEM type process, but change it to a value proposition in the market that's recognized and valued, that the innovation is recognized amongst our peers, is recognized amongst collaborative colleagues, and also our clients, that they come to us for those types of solutions. And trust me, it won't be cheap, but that's okay, right? Because the value is there, the payoff is on the other end.
It's hard to measure those savings. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a lot of. I think this is very positive. I think it's good for us, and as a whole, I think it's good for our industry to start behaving this way. And make no bones about it, there's a lot of very smart people in this, particularly in this city. We've got centers for excellence in geomatics, and but we're compensated for what we do by time and materials, which goes against that. So we're looking to change the game a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to measure the value of getting those problems solved before they even occur, right? And saving on mistakes when those mistakes don't happen. Like how do you measure that? And so you're really working on the basis of trust and respect and that track record that you're building over time with your clients. And it seems like Challenger is really starting to gain momentum in that aspect. in terms of having not only your employees and the people who work with the company recognizing that, but also clients, and you're growing, and that's always a positive thing.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and we like the performance feedbacks, the client feedback we receive on what we do and how we do it. I think is exemplary. We're not perfect, no one is. We're striving to be as good as we can be. We've got excellent leadership, and our presence in the north is very strong, which gives us a certain strength in the market, particularly when it fluctuates a lot here in Alberta. So I think we're in actually a really good spot that way.
Well, a lot of what we're talking about here is about the people and the expertise that you have and the changes that you are willing to make internally. What role do you think the technology manufacturers and technology dealers play in all of this when it comes to innovation and supporting what Challenger is doing? I know you work very closely with Spatial Technologies there in Western Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to hog the mic here, but I think this is something I believe that collaborative approach between the vendor, the manufacturer, the software developer, and ourselves, and other colleagues as well, and aligned collaborators affords us to bring a better value proposition to the market. It's a mutually respectful and beneficial relationship. Challenger's relationship with Leica and Spatial goes back decades, and there's times in which maybe we're disappointed with the way things are happening or the deployment of technology, but then we have a conversation, and frankly, our ability to reach out and get response directly from Leica, whether it's in the US or whether it's in Heerbrugg, I think I said that right, is phenomenal. We have direct contact with a lot of people, and it affords us an opportunity not only to improve our systems, but to make recommendations for improvement for the future. We've also had an opportunity to test some of the latest technology in very challenging environments in the north, where you're at the limit of communications capability. So how does that impact operations, and how can we make recommendations to improve? So personally, I think it's part of the value proposition that both Spatial and Leica have in the market. And we don't necessarily see that from other vendors.
Well, I know on Leica's side, it's incredibly valuable to have feedback from our customers, from companies like Challenger, so that we know what's needed in the market, whether that's from a software standpoint or a hardware standpoint. So we really appreciate having a company like Challenger being willing to provide that feedback. I know Challenger is involved in so many different things. I know that you have some Indigenous partnerships as well, where you're located. You're, of course, celebrating your 40th anniversary, which is a really big, great milestone to reach. So congratulations on that. What is one thing that you really want our audience to know about Challenger Geomatics?
Oh, boy. Does anyone else want to take that on?
I think you have the best.
All right. We're 40 years old, but we're a young company. We think young, and this is just the start. Where we're going with what we hope to develop is, at least for us, intended to be a game changer. And it's not without stress, it's not without tension, but it's very invigorating, and that makes Challenger a great company to be a part of.
And I would think a great company to work with too from the client side, because they know you are fully invested in whatever that challenge is that is being faced. The skills that you bring to the table, the innovation, the technology that you bring to the table, all of it just provides, again, so much value. As we're talking about the whole idea of value proposition, that brings so much value to whatever's trying to be achieved by those clients. What in your mind is the ultimate value proposition when you think of surveying and geomatics? I mean, surveying has existed since pretty much the beginning of time, right? And it's so valuable, but with everything that's changing in society right now and how quickly everything is changing, what is that value proposition that you think surveyors hold in today's market?
Wow. Well, that's another long answer. And surveyors struggle with this. Self-value, self-worth, where do we reside in the market? And I think if I look at it from my professional perspective, and this is my own perspective, it is certainty, something you can stand behind. For example, when we deploy technology, we use technology that we know will provide the results the client needs. If for example, all the client needs is an approximation, maybe slapping a 90-degree and pacing off is good enough. In some instances, we might need to use high-definition survey technology. In some cases, we might want to get more precise. The integration of many different technologies into a solution that provides the answer for the client in the most expedient fashion, and they know it's right. And like, it doesn't really matter what the technology is. It isn't about a particular piece of equipment. It's about that solution and that knowledge. Speaking as a legal surveyor, there's also the legal aspect of land tenure, which is a much deeper topic, but is crucial and underpins essentially our economy and our society. But we won't get into that debate today. So.
Very well said. It is essential for sure. And obviously what Challenger is doing is changing the value proposition. It is helping everyone see how much value surveying and geomatics can bring to the table, especially when companies are brought in and really viewed as that partner. You're not just there to hurry up and give us a stamp. You're really there to help solve those problems from the very beginning all the way through the end, on into the management of that project. So it's exciting to see what your team is doing. So Mike, you're the VP of Innovation, and we've been talking quite a bit about innovation in this interview. Is it when you think about the innovation and how it's being implemented at Challenger, is it a team of people? Is it a division? How would you describe that?
Right. So what we have is basically a company-wide focus on innovation, and everybody in every way is participating. Yes, we have a team. We have the GSD team, which we're a part of, which is focused on, there's representatives from each office. It's focused on harvesting ideas, qualifying those ideas and making sure that they make sense, and then investing the effort in carrying those ideas across the line. But it's very much supported and engaged by everybody within the company, from the highest level down to, I would hazard, even survey assistants. We have summer interns and stuff are very excited and invigorated by some of the things we're doing and are willing to contribute. So it's not an individual. It's all of us. And I think that's what makes it so fulfilling, is the fact that now that we've got some momentum, there's opportunity. Well, it's exponential.
Everyone wears that innovation hat, right? That's important. Well, Mike, Mandy, Matt, thank you so much and I guess we lost Matt. So Mike, Mandy, and Paul, thank you so much for being part of our program today. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope to have you on our show again at some point in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Christy. A pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Be sure to check out the description for additional resources on this topic. If you enjoyed this content, give us a like. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Tech Insider.